Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, columnist Ryan Carchi, Ginger Zach Osterman, 24/7 Sports in the back. The slump is over, at least for now. Penn State, Jesus. Indiana beats Penn State 73-54. Just to snap a 3-game slide. Saw some of the same problems, some of the same issues, but they at least, I guess, played with a little bit more of the edge. I think that people were talking about.
Especially those issues were mostly in the first half. The second half, offensively especially, they really came out and shot the ball well, 65%. They hit foul shots down the stretch. They didn't turn the ball over very much. There was only 9 turnovers. Not sure how many of those were in the second half. But kind of, as far as that edge goes, I think the most important moment was I think it was at 9 minutes or so remaining in the second half, and they had a pretty fast start to the second half, but then they had 2 straight turnovers plus a foul from Jordan Hulls. Penn State brought it within single digits, but from there, that was the last time Penn State had only trailed by single digits. Indiana kind of put the pedal to the floor and kept pushing and ended up winning, almost by 20 points. And I think just that drive and that intensity late in the game, and not to make late game mistakes, that was kind of key in them retaining their edge, as Kareem would call it.
Yeah, defensively, I thought that was sort of the biggest thing that happened in the second half. They played a lot of zone in the first half, a lot of 2-3, and what it sort of ended up happening is it almost ended up being sort of Jordan Hall's kind of on Tim Frazier. I mean, he was basically the guy providing ball pressure. Was getting beat. Frazier got to the paint a lot. Was able to get a lot of floaters to fall, and just kind of get that zone to collapse. And if he didn't take the shot, he was able to find guys wide open for 3 because everybody just collapsed to try to defend Frazier. And really, for a lot of the second half, I wouldn't say he did what he wanted, but he was getting the ball where he wanted to get it. He wasn't hitting all the shots, but he was at least getting room to make a shot. Second half, they went back to man-to-man. I thought this was Victor Oladipo's best defensive performance in a while. Him and Will Sheehy both defended Frazier,
especially in the second half.
Yeah, again, once they went back to man, they really did a good job of trailing him. And Frazier, it wasn't that he didn't still get space. I mean, he still got some room to work, but not quite as much, and had to force some shots, had to try a couple things off balance. Still ended up with 21 points, but only had 1 assist. Had a harder time finding other guys. Other guys had a really hard time scoring. They were able to close out on Penn State's other shooters, and they just didn't hit anything. I mean, I think they had 17 field goals as a team. Frazier hit 7 of those. Nick Colella hit 3 threes, but other than that, everyone was pretty bad. Cameron Woodyer was 2 for 11. And but it did really all start, I thought, with Vic and Will. I don't think Will defended him quite as much, but both of them just really did a good job of just making sure that Frazier couldn't kill them.
And when it came to focus, I think Indiana has definitely lacked focus at times in the last 3 games. And Victor Oladipo might have been the worst offender of that.
Especially against Bo Spencer on Wednesday night.
He lost a lot of focus in that game, and I think what we saw different in Vic was that down the stretch when it was a little more intense and Penn State was really pushing it, Victor kept his focus. I mean, and with that focus, I mean, I think he had 3 second half steals, something like that, and he was getting all kinds of offensive or defensive rebounds. And when he can kind of hone in that aggressiveness and focus on what he needs to do,
and
not gamble, I think he's definitely the most valuable defender Indiana has. But it hasn't been like that in the last few games before now.
I think it was I guess I would say, Crean kind of referenced that a couple times he yanked people out in the first half, not for getting beat, but for making the wrong decision on defense. I mean, I think that's a recognition. Sometimes you're just going to get, Tim Frazier he averages, 17 or almost 18 with
almost
6
18
rebounds
and
7 assists.
Yeah.
He's going to get his points. The 1 assist number was big to me because I think in the second half they did a really good job of closing out Frazier, not so much when he got into the lane, but limiting his options, I guess.
Yeah.
If he got into the lane, he would see a big body in front of him.
Yeah.
And they would bring somebody else. They would at least kind of cheat somebody else in so that he didn't have that passing lane.
Right.
You're
right
I thought
there
that
too.
was, I thought against Nebraska they spent a lot of time chasing and flailing on defense, and so they were kind of chasing the ball Whereas with Frazier today, again, they were more chasing those passing lanes because all of a sudden a 6-foot guard's got Cody Zeller in front of him. He's going to try and get the ball out, and what Indiana did today was it didn't give him that.
Right.
It didn't give him that second option to move the ball out and start Penn State's offense toward a more productive shot, whether it was a kick out or it was a kick out plus ball rotation.
Right.
I just thought a lot of the things, and I mean, I'm not saying that they fixed them, but I thought a lot of the things, I think Penn State's a tougher team than people really kind of remember.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I think that this is a very different Penn State team from the one the Big Ten seen in the last few years.
Even though that team was good, this team is scrappier.
Yeah, I mean, well, this team makes it harder for you to just kind of beat the crap out of them, which old Penn State teams
got some fight in them.
Didn't always do.
I mean,
but I thought I thought they corrected a lot of the problems that had really plagued them in. I mean, Frazier was getting into the lane, but he was probably the only one really. So I thought that they handled penetration a little bit better. I thought they moved Penn State off the offensive glass in the second half.
Yeah.
And then I mean, the big thing for me was, and Karchi talked about it a little bit too. They closed out the game. That was something I think this team needed to learn how to do, was to get up 15, 18 points, whatever. They were up 13 and then 11 against Nebraska. They needed to learn how to put a game away, and they did that today. Where on Wednesday they were running down the floor, they were rushing shots, they were trying to just like fly through their offense and get a shot up. Today there was a lot of kind of pulling the ball out, slowing things up, walking it down the floor, waiting, being willing almost to trade missed shots for more time off the clock, which is something that I think they should have done against Nebraska, and they didn't. And so I think today was just kind of a departure from a lot of the things that built this 3-game losing streak that they snapped.
I think what you're seeing now, though, is it is amazing how much different this team is when it hits threes versus when it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
There was so much. I think they really had a hard time getting the ball where they wanted to get it in the first half because they went, I think, 2 for 7 in the first half. They couldn't get anything to fall. Hulse had a couple of really good looks that he let go, and he was even just running back like he thought he hit it, and he just couldn't get any to fall. And Watford the same way. Both of those guys hit a couple of threes in the second half, and so much softens up. There's so much more just room to do things basically when those two guys can hit a couple of 3-pointers. Just keeps everybody honest. When they weren't really hitting against Nebraska's able to really attack ball handlers and really just turn some of those things into turnovers to just kind of rush everything. They lose confidence, so there's like kind of a mental issue, and also there's just not as much to defend. When those guys aren't hitting shots, it's harder for Oladipo and Sheehy to drive at all. I mean, they're really able to lock up on guys and kind of pack it in on Cody, and everything becomes harder to do. This team just doesn't have enough versatile scorers to get anything done when the threes aren't going down. They're a very versatile team when they do have the threes because they have somebody who can do everything, but they don't have anyone who can do everything. And that if they're not hitting, when they're hitting threes, they're pretty close to a complete team. When they're not, they're nowhere near it, and they have big trouble just doing anything.
And as far as the next game goes, I mean, you're playing a Wisconsin team on the road that is known for its efficient defense, and they're going to keep Indiana out of the lanes and out of the post as much as possible. They're going to have to hit 3-pointers to win that game, and that's going to be a huge part of that game and any other road game going forward. And I think it's hard to tell if they're back and if they have their confidence kind of shooting from there. It's going to be a game-to-game sort of thing, but I think today was definitely a step in the right direction as far as getting those guys to hit 3-pointers.
If nothing else, you just stop the free fall.
Yeah.
When things start to sort of go bad, when you lose games like Minnesota and Nebraska and Ohio State the way it did, I think this team did have to, at least somewhere in the back of his mind, had to worry, okay, like, are we regressing to last year, to the year before? I mean, Verdell said something about, we don't want to take a step back. And I think, I don't think they had really kind of, that fear had taken over yet, but it was there. You could see it kind of creeping in. At the very least, this gives them kind of a reprieve from that. At least for the next 4 or 5 days before they go to Wisconsin, they can feel like, okay, like, we're back on our feet again. We're standing up. We're not in a just complete free fall where we have to wonder where the bottom is. At the very least, they kind of leveled off, hit the bottom, and said, okay, let's go from here.
I do have a question, and that is, Zeller today, 7 of 8, 18 points, 4 of 4 on free throws. A lot of people talk about how he needs to touch the ball more. And I think Tom Crean even talked about how they're working to get him the ball more. They're moving away from the basket, just trying to get him.
Yeah, they did
touches.
that today.
Do you feel like it is getting to a point, though, where this team teams that face Indiana prioritize defending the three-pointer over Cody Zeller. I did not see Penn State double Cody Zeller a lot today. In fact, I don't remember
Right.
them doing it once. Has it come to a point where teams are much more concerned about letting Zeller? I guess the phrase is they let Zeller have his points, and then they're much more concerned about not giving him kickouts, not giving him open passes to start ball rotation, and keeping Indiana from getting 8, 9, 10 made threes a game, because it seems like that. It doesn't seem like teams are paying as much close attention to Zeller, especially the teams like Nebraska and Penn State that maybe aren't going to have the personnel to just man him up and stop him, and they're worrying more about stopping the three-pointer.
I think they're at least playing to kind of make up for that. Maybe if in that scenario they are doing that, I think they're trying to make up by playing it much more physically. I mean, I think people have really been kind of being physical and testing him in the posts and not letting him gain any position. And I think we saw that against Penn State. I mean, he was mauled a few times when there could have been a foul called for sure. And people know they can get away with that. And I think they're, I mean, not saying they're coaching to have them follow them, but I think they're telling their players to play as physical as you can get away with. And they saw what happened against Michigan State. I mean, if you body up on Zeller and you keep him from being close to the basket, then you can stop him. I mean, he's not unstoppable. But I guess that's kind of getting off topic. But.
Yeah, well, we're gonna cut it off anyway. But yeah, at the very least, slump is over. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.